Well, good evening, gentlemen and ladies. I'm Gary Green, and I'm the Genealogist General for 2223. And I want to welcome you to the Genealogy Forum for this evening. We have 65 guests at this point, and I'm going to start to share the screen. But before I do so, take a look and see if you can find the mute button for yourself on the bottom left. And if you'll mute yourselves, unless you want to speak, then unmute yourself. And then move over to the right and find reactions. It's about the third tab from the right. And in those reactions, there's a raised hand function that we will need to use. And I'm going to ask Dennis Van Warmer, would you help me again with the chat section while we're working tonight?
Okay, shall do.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Shelby. I hit by mistake like I want to talk. How do I get that hand off?
I don't know on a phone. I'm not sure how to
Okay.
do that.
Well, I just didn't. Okay. All right. I got it.
It becomes lower hand after you push it and raise the hand. So you can go back to the same reactions thing and get it to go down.
Thanks very much.
Okay, this forum, we're going to have a welcome, and I want to review the goals, do a requirements list, go over what that means, a little bit of housekeeping. I want to recognize that we have a registrar training course coming up in October. And then I want to discuss service versus reference for service on the application. And then we'll be having an open forum for questions that may have arisen. Looking at what I've seen so far from our staff, I see Denise Hall, our senior genealogist, Kristen Eds, and Bill Birchfield. Are there any other staff genealogists on the call tonight?
Hi, Chris. John Mitchell. Your phone number just popped up on my phone, like you had tried to call me. Did you? It's now about 6:04. I didn't hear it ring, but just following up to see if you had tried to reach me a few minutes ago. I'm at that number now. I'm on the Zoom meeting till 7. Okay, thanks.
Okay, and we have former genealogist General Jim Falkenberg on the line, and we have the chairman of the Genealogy Committee, Bill Schwetke, here tonight. Are there any other committee chairs that are on the call that would like to recognize themselves? I want to go over some goals and give you a little bit of report. Primary goal is to reduce the backlog of applications to 4 weeks, and our genealogy staff has been pounding away. We have new applications are down to 11 weeks, 4 days. In the month of August, they approved 379 applications while receiving another 255 from people across the country. In the supplemental world, we're still holding at 24 weeks. They've approved 174 during August and added 54 from folks around the country. The real kicker is that we pended 172 applications. And what that means is almost doubling the amount of time that the staff genealogist has to work on an application to set up and figure out why they want to pend it and then pass that on to the applicant. 42% of the supplementals were pended, and 29% of the new applications were pended in the month of August. That's a pretty significant rate. We also had memorials approved, 14 of them. Want to raise the application approval rate to 90% across the board. We have several societies who are struggling to get to that rate at this point. The next time I'll be reviewing that will be at the end of December. And then I want to reduce the genealogy staff member time per application to 1 hour. Initial indication was it takes about an hour, 45 minutes to review every application on an average. That's including going over the pendant items. This is probably the most well thought of concept, the requirements list or checklist that I sent out in July. It gives the guidance and references for the application preparation manual, the genealogy policy committee, genealogy committee policies, and then the genealogist general letters and emails that have come out over the years. It's useful for new or beginning registrars in saying, where's all the information I need to know? Where can I find it? And make sure I get those first applications correct. And I'm going to strongly encourage that we use it for supplemental applicants. What I'm seeing with the supplemental applicants is that they're not really sure where the things go on the application. They are making some errors that are causing the staff to have to use brackets all over the application, and I would like to give them some opportunity to get better at it. This is requested to be reviewed for each application, but those of you who have paid attention the last month, it is not mandatory. And we've got some pending items that I want to discuss. Within the checklist, there are 6 items that will automatically pend your application. And I think you need to be aware of them as a registrar point of contact or looking at supplemental applications that may come in. It must be printed on a form that's 2017 or later. And that sounds kind of silly, but we did have some forms in the month of August that were printed on earlier applications. The font size in PDF for Word, it's kind of hard to fool around with the font size, but we still are worried about it. And then in the online application, you've got to have it between 90 and 110% of scale when you print it. And you also need to have a page break between generations as opposed to having part of a generation on one page and the other part on the second page. We need the applicant to sign unless another is allowed to sign on his behalf, such as a junior, but that is a requirement to have the application signed. In fact, you'll get your application pended if you don't have the 5 signatures for a new application and the 2 signatures for the supplemental. We did have at least one application that was pended because it had the dates in the wrong format. So we're pretty good at it, but not complete. And if you're using a DAR as a proof, it must be an official DAR record copy, not a chapter copy. And it includes all the 4 pages. So something tells me that we need to look at what the first page would look like in a DAR record copy. Those of you who are putting in DAR record copies need to add this cover sheet and then the pages that follow it. I've had a request by the staff to see if we can limit the calls from applicants directly to the staff members. We have 50 plus points of contact across the nation, and the staff is requesting to talk only to the folks who are considered the point of contact for their state society. This is taking up some extra time for the staff members by having to answer more calls from different people. So try to think about what our goal is to get them to get their applications reviewed and get them done quickly. Updates of information or reviews. One of the things that we have is if you have an item that's pended, you've got about 45 days, the time period to make it better before it turns into a long-range pendant item. I'd like to consider coming up with a concept that after that 45 days, try not to put a lot of inputs in until we have like a 6-month interval. What we're finding is people keep putting in emails and updating it along the way, and it disrupts the timing for the genealogist. He's going to look at one thing, and then she's going to look at the next one, and then it keeps dragging along. So we could kind of put all our updates in a pile or a group that we found, and then limit the number of times that you actually write to the staff to update. One of the things that I think I'm particularly proud of is we're going to have our genealogy committee member Dennis Van Warmer present a National Registrar Training course starting on the 3rd of October. It's going to go for 6 weeks, and it's going to go at 8 o'clock Eastern time zone. The one thing to be aware of, on the 6th of November, we're going to daylight savings time, so that 7 November class will be a little bit different. These are the topics that are going to be completed during this time. And I've taken the course and found that it was pretty eye-opening to say, oh yeah, that's right, I knew of that. So
Gary, this
yes,
is
sir.
Dennis.
Yes, sir.
Were you going to share the screens
For which part? Right here?
for everything?
If you have slides, we're not seeing them, Gary.
There's nothing shared at this point.
Okay, sorry about that. Let me go back to the beginning then and start over, and we'll see what we can do for share screen.
Gary, while you're doing that, there are several people who are not muted. I'm hearing a lot of background noise. It's covering you up from time to time.
Okay,
Just check your mute button.
okay, anybody see my shared screen at this point?
Yes.
We can see it now, thank you.
Okay, I apologize, folks.
Yes, Gary.
This is a welcome, and this is the list that I was talking about. I'm
Sam
going to-
Ashdown is live mic.
Okay, are we doing better now? Okay, we have the welcome, the goals, requirements list, housekeeping, registrar training, and service versus reference for service, and then open forum. The staff members I recognize with Denise Hall, Kristen Eds, and Bill Birchfield, and we have Jim Falkenberry, former genealogist general, and Bill Schwetke is the chairman of the genealogy committee.
Susan Julian is also on, Gary.
Okay, I saw Susan, but I didn't know if that was her. Thank you. Want to go back over these goals so you can visualize them as well now. Our goal is to reduce the backlog of the applications. In August, we're down to 11 weeks, 4 days for the new, 24 weeks for the supplemental. But the things to look at are how much work has actually been accomplished. The new applications, we have 379 that have been approved in August. And at the same time, people across the country added 255 applications. Supplementals, we've had 174 approved, and 54 have been added during the month of August. At the same time, we've pended 172 applications. Now, some of those are short-term pens. You need to go back and get a birth certificate, or you need to go to some sort of information to add to the report or application. But the indicators are 42% of the supplementals are being pended and 29% of the new applications are being pended. So we've got to do some work on the cleanup before it gets to the staff, so we're not spending time on pending items. We've also had 14 memorials approved during this time. My goal in general is to raise the approval rate to 90%. And we've got about 20 societies who are not quite achieving that, particularly in the supplemental area. So we need to work on that. And we want to reduce the amount of time the staff spends per application. This is the requirements list, is the checklist that I put out on the 20th of July. It includes references to the application preparation manual, the genealogy policy manual, and the genealogist general letters and emails. I find it pretty useful for new or beginning registrars, and I find experienced registrars look at it and say, that's what I do. I mean, there's no doubt that that's what they're planning on. Hey, John Kraft, you had a question already? You need to.
Yes, sir. I had a question a while back when you talked about the 6-week online course that starting October 3rd.
Yeah.
At 8 p.m. Is that going to be made available by recording of some sort?
Yes.
Particularly, here on the West Coast, 8 p.m. is 5 p.m. here. I have a family business that I run, and I work that evening, every Tuesday evening.
All right. The answer to your question is yes, it's going to be recorded.
Thank you. I didn't mean to be long-winded.
Okay. Okay. So we've went over this before about pending items, pended items. These are the 6 big ones that will pend an application almost immediately. If it's not on the form 2017 or later, it's going to get turned back and you're going to have to reprint it. If the font size is too small to read, or then the genealogist is going to say, reprint it. You've got to have the signatures on there. The applicant signature seems pretty obvious, but Mike Scroggins gets to look at these as they come in, and if he doesn't see the appropriate number of signatures, he turns it back. Ralph, you had a question? Ralph Nelson?
Yes, I hope that somebody will put on the website how to accomplish the page break between generations, because I think it is not obvious.
Okay, I think that'll be covered in our registrar.
I know how to do it, but it's not trivial.
No, it isn't. It's tough. You're right. Birth certificate is required for all new applicants. That specifies gender as male, and that's become a big push all the way across. All dates, we did have one turn back that had their dates in the wrong format, so people still aren't getting that. And then using the DAR application, you have to use the DAR record copy. And what I'm looking at is DAR record copy is going to have this cover sheet on the right. It's got to be one that we purchased, spend the $10, get the application. Using record chapter copies is not acceptable. We have had a request by, okay, Jim Falconberry, you had a question? You're muted.
Now I'm unmuted. Question on that, because I was told that you take that front page off and the first page is the Patriot summary. This would be a 5th page. They only wanted 4 pages. Do they now want 5? Maybe Denise can answer that.
Yeah, Denise.
I'm trying. That's right, Jim. We don't need that cover sheet, that first sheet, because they're the same on everyone. We just pitched those. We just need the cover page that takes the place of the first page, redacting all the personal information signatures. That page, the lineage page, the references page, and the Patriots references page, those 4 pages.
And the distinction is that there will say something on the form that says DAR record copy.
Yeah, at the very bottom, there'll be a footer that says record copy or library copy services. If the footer says chapter copies, that means that some registrar printed it and we don't take those. Also, you might want to point out that they need to print the entire form, make sure it's printed, that the size is reduced to all fit on an 8.5 by 11 paper, or you can print it on 8.5 by 14, but we don't take them if they're cut off.
Okay, good input.
Denise, do we want the print? Some people want to print them front and back. Do you want
That's
those?
That's okay. That's okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Amy Tillery.
Denise?
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got to put up my hand. I didn't, that's one of my questions. Does it have to be shrunk to 8.5 by 11 or can you use 8.5 by 14?
You can use 8.5 by 14. Well, we want to make sure we see them all the time where someone has printed them 8.5 by 14 size, but on 8.5 by 11 paper. So you got a third of it cut off. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Because that was one of, will we be able to go over some of the questions later on about some of the new guidelines later on, Gary?
Yes, when we get to the end, we'll have questions and answers, but I've got a couple folks who have their hands up. Amy Tillery, you had a question?
The comment that I had was the first page of a DAR application has information about the member's name, national number, and information about the patriot. And then you have the other 3 pages with lineage, details of the documents, and then the final page where the Registrar General has signed off, that sort of thing. So the first page that you send has the DAR logo up in the upper left-hand corner, not the page, as Denise said, not the page that's showing on your slide there.
Okay. Thank you. Steve Miller?
Yes, I want to go back to the one about the generations on carrying over to the second page. One of the things that I've found that you only need a couple of lines to keep the generations on one page, or without going over, you might be able to just, at the period you have, go down a couple more and put another period 2 lines down or so. And make sure you don't go to the third page with the whole thing, but you sometimes can juggle those generations that way so they fit on the, so you don't get a carryover.
Okay, thank you. Jim Falkenberry?
Good comments. The first page of an acceptable DAR application has no information about the applicant. What it is the Patriot summary. It talks about the Patriot and his information. So you don't, if you've got one that has the information about the applicant, you've got a chapter copy. The second comment has to do with the page break. If you use on an online application, adjust that scale between 90 and 110, you can use that to make the page break occur. Just you can visualize it online and you can choose the right scale size and it works.
Okay, thank you. Now let's see if we can go on to the next slide then. This is the concern about the registrar training that Dennis Van Warmer from the Genealogy Committee will be presenting. And we're going to start it on October 3rd. And it should run for 6 weeks, once a week. And we will go through this. It will be recorded so that if you're in the wrong time zone, you still have a chance to see it. This course is an excellent update for those of you who are experienced. It's also a good start for an inexperienced chapter registrar. Give them a chance to see what needs to be done And we will, once it's recorded, you'll be able to go back over it and say, I want to catch up on some other information. So I think this will be beginning of having a standard training program across the United States. Robert Vance?
Yes, sir, Gary. I was just wondering if that training course will be available to anybody or just registrars.
It's going to be available to anybody. We're definitely going to have to mute so that you can hear it, but I think we can make it available for everybody that wants to see it.
Thank you.
Dennis?
One comment, one of the previous questioners said something about couldn't make it because he worked late on Tuesday. This is not Tuesday. These are Monday nights. They're all Monday nights. And the time is Eastern. So as Gary said, it'll still be Eastern on November 7th, but it'll be Eastern Standard Time instead of Eastern Daylight Time. But they are all Monday nights.
Okay, Ethan? Can't hear you, Ethan. Say it again.
Microphone's not working.
No, we're not hearing you. You may want to see if you can.
Microphone's not working.
Now they go back over there though.
Is your mic plugged in?
Okay, Brian Schilling.
Whereabouts on the website will we be able to find these recorded classes for the registrar, Gary?
We'll probably have it in the e-training session once we get them up and going. Initially, I will send out a link that'll be on YouTube, but I'm going to try to get it up on it so that it'll be something that'll be available along the line. And the good news is, once we go through the first time, we're going to try to do it again in January, and we'll maybe have some updates by that time and be able to enhance the course. But the idea is to have something for a new chapter registrar. Okay, one of the items that I wanted to address that I see, and I've seen for a long time, the last 4 years, is the difference between service and the reference for service. In the PDF, it's the front page that we're giving the service, and we get a choice. It's military service, civil service, or patriotic service. And you find this in the policies. So you need to look at what you're trying to describe, what the fella or gal did. For military service, we usually see the rank and the unit and possibly his commanding officers. Civil service, it's going to be something that he did for the town. It'll probably be coming from town records, but it's things that he did. He's a surveyor, or he's a juror, or some other activity. And the patriotic service is he helped the cause, but wasn't military and it wasn't civil, so that becomes patriotic. So things like paying taxes or getting reimbursed for beef that you supplied to the army, that sort of thing, patriotic service. Now, those are things that they did. On the back side for the PDF, or in the second column, it's where did you find that data? Where can you say, prove that he did military service or civil service or patriotic service? You don't want to have the rehash of this same activity. You want to have a document, or you want to have a pension number. If everything goes well, you got a pension number and you're done. You may have to use sources from a DAR record copy or an SAR record copy, or possibly a CAR record copy, but you want to put it where you're going to find what that fella or gal did for service to the country. So there are two different blocks. and we're getting very confused. The biggest one happens to be confusion for supplementals is what I can see. So I'm hoping that the chapter registrar recognizes this and then can train those who are doing supplementals. Okay, this is where we get into the questions, and I'm sure Brian has 3 or 4 that he's still trying to figure out, but if you can raise your hand and we can recognize you for questions that you might have. Okay, David Schaefer.
Yes, Gary, with regard to online applications, I went to my dashboard, my chapter dashboard. I've got 7 applicants. I was able to contact one and complete his application today, and another one is from 2018. But I've got applications from 2020 to as early as 2016 was the last date they were saved. Are we supposed to do anything with these it's from the member database that we as registrars have access to?
Yeah, I think what we're finding is that they're resurrecting data that they have had in the computer. The online system does not do a very good job of notifying anybody that someone has put it in there. So when we get the funding to fix the online system, that'll be one of the fixes that has to come about. Meanwhile, it's manual. I would say you do your best shot, try to contact the fellow and see if he's interested, and continue on with what we have. It's the only way we're going to be able to catch up with them.
Just as a follow-up, if they don't reply after 3 contacts, should we delete the application, or should we just leave it alone?
Your choice. You're in charge of your chapter dashboard, but I would leave it for a while till you figure out what we're going to do with these applications, because the online system hasn't been adjusted since 2015. So we're working on it. Okay, Harry Rinker.
Yes, I'd like to reiterate my concern that the only way we're going to get these pending supplements is to require chapter registers to have to sign off on them. Theoretically, they're supposed to go through chapter registers, but from my own experience, and I'm a genealogist and registered for 2 chapters, people send them in around us.
Yeah.
And until you require signatures, it's going to continue.
Okay, you think of the signature on the form as opposed to signature on the checklist?
No, yes, I think it needs a signature on the form from the chapter register. Yes, I do.
Okay.
And by the way, I'd like to address the question the gentleman asked. In West Michigan, we had a genealogist prior to me go through that backlist and get over 20 people finished. That backlist should be explored. I've encountered that in the Central Florida chapter, and I was able to get 4 to 6 people successfully off the backlist and into the organization. Should not be top priority, but I think it's a workable mine if you're willing to take the time to mine it. Thank you.
Thank you for your work, Harry. Jerry Pinkerton. Jerry Pinkerton, you want to unmute?
Yeah, thank you. I just was going to comment again that in Texas, we have a requirement that no one sends a supplemental to the state registrars without going through the chapter. So sometimes we can work around that, but the point is that we have that requirement, and it helps the process quite a bit to have that go that way and reduce the problem areas that show up without that.
Okay. And is that run by your state board of managers or state board of governors, whatever you have in
the state board of governors implemented that process about 12 to 15 months ago. And so we have been following that process, and we still find some people that are not aware of it. But if it's a bad one, we'll send it back to the chapter registrar to get it straightened out before we ever try to review it.
Outstanding. Ron Bearden.
Thank you. 3 quick points. One, for clarification, is a DAR record copy obtained directly from DAR in Washington, D.C. acceptable with the original first page?
Denise, can you help me with that one?
I know which ones you're talking about, I think, because back before they had the online ordering system, I ordered mine directly from DAR.
Right.
They're stamped record copy. They don't have chapter copy on them. Yes, those are okay.
Okay, thank you. Second point, on the supplementals listed on the status report, because right now it's taking so long for them to be approved, they generally float off of the status report long before they're ever approved. And this is causes a lot of phone calls to me at the state level, because people say, where is my application? I never saw it approved. Can we add some length of time to supplementals that are posted on the status report so that they stay on there at least for a degree of time after they're approved?
That's kind of out of my realm. I don't know, Ron.
It's somebody's realm though, Denise.
Yeah, I didn't know they were falling off before they'd ever.
Yeah, I don't have a single supplemental application on the status report that shows approved, because they all float off before.
Oh, you're talking about once they're approved.
No, well, they float off before they're ever reviewed.
Oh, before they're reviewed. I don't know. Send Mike Scroggins an email. Jesse's on vacation this week, and I would tell you that, but I have no idea how they set those up. I don't run those reports.
Okay, thank you. All right, one last point that I'd like to make before I stop. You mentioned at the beginning of this session, Gary, that how many pending applications and all we had last week or last month. Sometimes, well, all the time, I guess, applications that are headed toward being pending get to that point before we have time to do anything with them. Last week, I had an application that was pending. It's still showing on the pending report because it's not updated but once a month, and yet that issue was resolved that day. You know, and so I can't see where that needs to be counted as a pending application.
Well, maybe it's the definition that we're running into. If you require if a genealogist has to write an email, send it back and say, we're waiting for this, we pended that report, and it's a short-term pending. So they are pending. Yeah.
They did give me notification, but it was resolved that day.
Right.
And if for instance, we had a week before it ever hit the pending list, I think you would see a lot less pending applications.
Okay, well, I'm doing this manually, so it's not on the list that I'm figuring out the pendant. If I see an email that comes out from the staff that's going to the state saying we're waiting for some data, that to me is that's that list of pendant that I'm talking about, not the big list.
I see a message from one of our chapter registrars here in Alabama that says, what does short term mean?
Okay, I would say that if it doesn't go on to the pended list that gets published, it's short-term pending. It's still pended. It's just what I'm trying to reduce is the number of communications that we have to go back and forth with the staff genealogist.
Okay, we generally don't know they're pending until we get that communication.
Right, I agree. But
okay,
hopefully we know that, or we can put that data in beforehand. That's what.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir. Dan Kraft.
Yes, thank you. It's been my understanding that supplementals need to be signed only by the member who is filing a supplemental and the state registrar. And I heard some comments that they should also be signed by the chapter registrar. And I don't believe there's any place on the form for that to happen.
You're right. There is no place on the form. We're trying to, that was a suggestion for helping to clear up the problem. The problem we've got are supplementals are going in, they're not being reviewed by our best members in the chapter is the best way I can describe it. We've got folks who do applications all the time, but they're not getting a chance to look at it if it's put in by a fellow that doesn't need to run it by the chapter registrar. So we're trying to find a way to adjust that. The chapter registrar can't sign. There's no place on the form. The only thing we have for chapter registrars to sign now would be that requirements list. And some states are using that as a way to rein in the supplementals. So you're correct, Dan. There's no place that we can do that right now. Let's see. How about Ron Turner?
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, in Texas, or at least in my chapter, we're using the first line sponsor field for the registrar to sign on supplementals.
Okay. Okay, Bill Schilling or Brian Schilling, one more time.
Thank you. This is in regards to that checklist, Gary, that you sent out in the summer.
Yep.
And I saw something there that I wanted to bring to the attention. It is under proof for documents. And I think it's down under number 4. It talks about if you have, for example, a census record that you can't get on one sheet, that you print what you can on one page and then blow up the part that didn't get on the front page and then print it on the back of your first page of the census. But if in the future, if we're going to run that through and just have one side, hopefully in the future that we could do like DAR, then that's just there again, that's creating more work for the staff at at National to do, because they may not see it, they may not see the flip side. So I think that's something to be looked at and maybe addressed.
Okay, thank you. Steve Miller.
Thank you.
Yeah, Gary. Yeah, I have a question. Can you use a SAR approved application from the individual for a supplemental that does not have record copy stamped on it? It was the one he was given with the certificate. It has all the markings on it, all the bracketed and tick marks and signatures and dates and everything, but it does not have record copy stamped on it. So I was assuming it had to have record copy on it. So I said, well, that's easy. I'll just order one of your copies. Well, I can't. They wouldn't let me. I guess he has to order it. So, but anyway, does it have to have record copy on the SAR application that he was originally approved with, which is in the late 90s, early 2000s?
And Denise, you want to handle that?
Yeah, yes, it does. And when they get sent a copy, okay, when applications are approved, there is one record copy for the member or new member or supplemental member. And there's another record copy sent to the states that is meant for the state secretary. State secretary is the one who receives all those documents after they're registered. Um, all of them should have record copy stamped on them. Because Jonathan runs them through and copies them, copies the words record copy through a copier before he sends them out. So they should, yes, they should have record copy stamped on them.
Okay, well,
This is Chris.
And he should not have to order another one. He was given one. Now, we have had many.
no, he wasn't. He was not given one, and it's from California.
Okay. Are
I'm
you
in
sure?
Arizona, and so I don't know who your state registrar is in California.
No, it's the state secretary.
Well, state secretary, I don't know who he is in
The
California.
problem we have seen, I mean, you know, I've been there 16 years, and the problem we've seen over and over and over again is the state secretary or the chapter person who might be sent the packets for the members. Somebody's taken them out. So the member should get one. It should say record copy on it when he gets an approved member application or supplemental.
I have a question. Why would we need that when we're not sending that copy down to national? We're throwing that away.
And you don't have to send it. I mean, that's, you know,
I thought we
but
were told not to send it.
you know, we're not gonna get upset if you do send it, but it is very important for people working with the applicant to see it, to know what was approved, what was bracketed and all that. So all that can be completed, utilized in completing the new application.
Generally,
I agree.
Generally with supplementals, you might use the first 5 generations on his original approved and then branch off down to a Patriot. That's what we did.
Sure.
Yes, dear.
Okay, Jim Falconberry.
Yeah, I was the state secretary for several years for California, and I know for a fact that every chapter, every packet that we get goes to the chapter, and the chapter keeps one copy and the applicant keeps one copy, and they're always both stamped SAR record copy. I've never seen one that didn't. I do recall though, I think it was a year ago when we started asking them to start sending them, that one of the PRS volunteers printed one of the applicants and sent that in. And that caused a big stink because, well, we violated the $10 fee and SAR didn't get $10. So
When I joined in '88, we only received one from national. It was not until years later that the 2 copies started coming. So the society did receive one, and I believe most societies kept the one and never gave the applicant theirs.
I didn't join till 2001, so you're probably right.
Yeah, I joined in '88.
I did have
I did a lot of supplementals.
A couple other comments while I'm on about the pending report and the application report. I think it was about a year and a half ago as the backlog for supplementals started growing. We got Jesse and Mike Scroggins got together and they extended it to, I think, to 16 weeks. Well, now if it's 24 weeks, they are definitely dropping off and that needs to be extended again. The pending report only gets updated by Jesse, I think once a month. So even if it's cleared within the same day as you get the pending notice, it's not going to show up as cleared until the next month.
Gary Pinkerton.
Thank you. A couple of points that have been raised before. The period of the application status report on this last one went from approximately 9 months to 6 months. And reiterating the comment that was made earlier about supplementals falling off before we have a clue as to whatever happened to them. I echo that comment, and it suggests that for supplementals that period be extended for 10 months or something longer, because we have them, as we try to track them, they disappear and we don't know if they were pended or what until we get that once a month pended report, and we surmise if they're not on the pended report, they somehow were approved. The other thing that we do in Texas, the online form does not have a line once you use the online form, if you're doing supplemental, it doesn't have a line for, co-sponsor. So we just have the people write in a line that says chapter review, and we have them do the same thing on the PDF and other versions. If there isn't a line for them to do, we have them say reviewed by chapter registrar and sign off there. And the comment that Denise said about the record copy, my understanding was that the instructions say you don't have to include a SAR record copy because National has reference, has the availability to refer to them. We put them in the package if they come to us, but if one doesn't come to us, then because of that instruction, we don't track one down.
Okay. Brian, are you still have another question?
Oh, I'm sorry, Gary, I forgot to lower my hand.
Okay. John Kraft?
Yeah, regarding the comment about the record copies, I'm looking at the APM, and it says that it's not needed at national, but it may be required by the state and chapter registrars. I require them, period, and I include them with the package. It's very simple. And the other comment I was going to make quite a while ago, my cousin Dan Kraft alluded to, or beat me to it actually, regarding the signatures on supplemental. I think it was regarding supplementals. I know different states do things differently, and the only application form that I will accept basically is the online form. And it's my understanding that the state registrar is required to sign that before it gets submitted. If applicants or chapters for that matter are sending those to national without processing through the state registrar, it's wrong. It should be sent back, in my opinion.
It has to have the registrar's signature, you're right, and that will get sent back if you don't have the signature. Ron Bearden?
Thank you. If I'm not mistaken, something came out in the last couple of years that said that we do have to send an SAR record copy with an application if that application is based on that SAR record copy. Has that changed? Denise?
I don't think that has changed. I don't know where that came from.
Well, there's been some talk on here in the last few minutes that the SAR record copy is not required. It's what I'm hearing.
It's not required to be sent to us. That's true, because we have them all there. We don't need an extra piece of paper, and we don't retain them in the files when they come in. However, it probably should be required for all the state registrars to see them, our state or chapter registrars to see them when they review the applications before they send them to us.
And
We don't
nothing
need
came
them because
out,
we've got them.
nothing came out in the last few years requiring us to submit that.
Not that I know of. I mean, it's been discussed, but I think it's just a way to get people to have to see them in order to, at the state level or local chapter level, in order to be able to review them the right way before they send the applications to us, to make sure what was approved matches the new application. We don't need them.
This is Bill Swetke of the committee. If I could come in here for just a minute. That has been discussed in committee to require that, and that is a result of pressure from some states who want the record copy sent to the state registrar, and there's been no action made on that. And I think a lot of states require that on their own. The states can take care of it. rather than having national require it when we don't really need it for the staff registrars.
Right.
Yeah, I apologize. When I was saying that we don't send it down, we do require it to be received of the applicant so we can verify that what's on the application matches what the approved record copy has. We just don't send it to national because we were told it was duplicative.
Okay, Bill Wilson.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're good.
My question has to go back to the checklist. And I'm trying to pose the question in reaction to emails that I received from other state registrars that were adamant about the fact that we had to double signature both the checklist and the application. And I kind of concur with that thought process. The question I guess I'm asking is, why is my signature required both on the checklist and on the application? Is not my signature on the application stating that I've done the best diligence that I could apply to my application and sending it forward based upon the knowledge base that I have? I don't personally see why I have to signature, or that my chapter registrar has to signature something that both him and I are going to signature on the application itself. And I guess that's one of my questions.
Okay, let me try to address that. We changed the checklist, sent out a new checklist that only required the chapter registrar's signature because of the input that you said you're signing it on the form. You have to sign that. The reason I included the chapter registrar is, although the practice is the chapter registrar could be the sponsor or the co-sponsor, that's not necessarily a requirement. It doesn't say any place that you have to have a chapter registrar sign that application. So my intent is to make sure that the chapter registrar at least gets the chance to see the application as it's going in, because you could put it in theoretically without either one of those. I mean, it's just.
But you indicated that it is a mandate that we have to send it forward.
No, there is no mandate. There is no
okay.
mandate. You've got some
Okay.
old information.
Okay, very good. I appreciate that very much. And I wanted to compliment Denise and Jesse and the staff up there for the training sessions. I believe that is a major portion of our issue, at least my state, and I'm sure other states, that we have such a turnover in chapter registrars that the new registrars coming in, even myself as a state registrar, I don't feel that I have a sufficient background in genealogy to be a competent person. So Denise and Jesse have been more than cordial on some very, I'm sure, some very simple posed questions. They probably laughed at them, but from our end, training is a very big issue, and the turnover is an issue. So we have so many new chapter registrars that they don't even know how to print out the form.
Yep.
And one gentleman brought that subject up about, making sure that each generation is contained on the page it's on. And I know all the steps to make that happen, but the new registrars do not, and they go through a lot of agony. So these training sessions, they are going to be excessively valuable to us. And thank you again. I'm sorry about taking up so much time.
No, good questions, Bill. Okay. Is it Thomas McCormick? Thomas?
Yes, This is Tom McCormick here.
Go ahead.
I had two questions. I thought we were trying to take less time with the national genealogist, and yet right now I've got a memorial, a supplement, and a new member, all with the same ancestry, and it's generations father, son, and grandson, and all three of them go to a different place. I have to have 3 sets of proof and 3 different checks by 3 different people. And I think this is a total waste of me making copies and of the National Registrar's time. That's my first question, is why is this happening? And the second one is on the census. The census is readable on 11 by 17 in handwriting. It is not readable on letter size or legal. Now, yes, I can go buy some other software where it's actually printed out, but that's an additional cost to the chapter. Now, is that the intent of what National is trying to do? Get it to be printed rather than handwritten?
Okay, you want, this is which census are you talking about that you're running into this?
Like the 1850 census, for example. It's the most used census, but it basically comes out best on 11 by 17. And if you drop it down to letter size, it is not readable.
Okay, I'll have to get back to you on that one. And this is Thomas who's asking the question?
Yes, Tom. And the other question is, why are we wasting so much time on the same family tree with 3 different people reviewing and 3 different locations?
Okay, I got that question. I'm not sure how to address that one right now, so need to get back to you on
As I
that.
said, it's a memorial, a supplement, and an application. And they go to 3 different places. And they require 3 sets of proof.
And
3 different.
Yeah, did you send it in or?
No, I haven't sent it in yet, but
Okay.
I've got everything typed up and I've got the proof, but I've got to make copies of the proof, 2 copies of the proof in order to send it in. But I was expecting to get a break on the cost of it, but there's absolutely no break because it goes to 3 different people. We have to have 3 different checks. It's just like, I was like shocked because I
No.
thought we were trying to streamline things.
The new member application and a memorial application can go in at the same time. However, the memorial application has to be based on the membership of an already active member within 2 generations. So if that's what you're trying to do, you can't put in a new member application at the same time as a memorial application that's being based on that new member application. Because the member has to be has basically the sponsor for the memorial. One can't happen before the other. I mean, the new member has to happen before the memorial.
All right. Well, what I've got is the son of the memorial is a member and asking for a supplement. And he is trying to get his son in with a new member application.
Okay. Supplementals and new member applications are not reviewed at the same time together.
That's my question. I mean,
Right.
I've got 3 of them here and I'm going to have 3 different checks, 3 different sets of proof. And it just seems like a total waste of time.
There's probably a better way to do it. I'd have to look at it, Tom.
Because
memorial can't be based on an application that hadn't already been approved.
all right,
Supplemental
I've
get approved.
got a supplement
separately.
with signing. The guy who's got is going after a supplement is signing the memorial. Okay, it's his father.
Okay.
And he's trying to get his son in as a new member, and all on the same line. And it's just won't work without doing 3 different applications, 3 separate proofs, and 3 separate checks.
No, the memorial and the new member can go in at the same time if they're on the same line. Supplementals are always separate.
Always separate. But
Yes.
there's no break in cost.
This is Jim Falkenberry from California again. I recently had the same issue. And what it was our past chapter registrar sent in a supplemental, and he also sent in 2 sons' new applications using the same supplemental. And it was 1 check for all of them. But the only problem we had was he had all the documentation, 1 set of documentation is all he needed, but he put it in the supplemental, which went in a different pile. If he had put it in the new member one of those new member applications, those two would have been approved instead of pended. You understand? It only took one set of documentation. It only took one check for the 3 applications.
Yeah, I'm being told I really need 3 and 3.
No.
It's
New
just-
members and memorials get reviewed at the same time by the same people. They're not separate. I mean, they are separate from the supplementals, but they can go, the other ones, new members and memorials and juniors, all that can go on the same transmittal forms. They can be reviewed together.
But there's no break in cost.
Only for the, well, the new member family plan coming in on a new member application, there is a break-in cost on the application fee. There's
All right.
not for the supplemental if it doesn't come in with other supplementals on the same Patriot.
Okay, so if this is the grandson of the memorial, it would, that's becoming a member, that would count as a family?
No, Jim's shaking his head. I'm not sure.
Because this whole thing seems kind of, like I said, it's very laborious from our end. And it seems to be that we've got 3 people doing the same thing at national. And
It's hard for people to keep straight all the discounts, I'll tell you. And that's not, we didn't make those rules, so.
I know we had an online program to figure them in Texas, and then it went offline. I don't know what the reason was, but it went offline. So it no longer works. So I'm trying to figure all this out, but right now I'm still going to send them three sets of membership and separate, since there doesn't seem to be a break in cost, because anything short of that sounds like it may result in a pending.
Well, we'd have to know where the documentation was. So you're probably good in doing that, just to, avoid any confusion.
Because that to me is, I thought I'd be sending it all in together with one set of documentations until I talked to the state, and he wouldn't give me a break on the cost. And so I said, well, wait a minute, if I'm not getting a break on the cost, because he said it was going someplace else. And now I realize that it is all, we're going to have basically 3 different people reviewing everything. So I got to have 3 sets of documentation. It just, it goes against the grain when it comes to less time at national. And it's definitely for me.
I know. I understand.
Okay.
Thank you, Thomas. We need to catch up because we've got a couple more folks that have their hands up. Did you have one more input?
No, that's it.
Okay. Ron Turner?
Yes, Gary, in answer to a comment that Thomas just made, in Texas, the fee calculator is on the state public website under About Texas SAR, and it does work.
Not yesterday. It was down yesterday.
Okay. Ralph Nelson?
Okay, just put my hand down, but I was going to suggest in the case of the 3 sets of documentation, if he would send in the application for the member, or
The new application.
Either the new application or the supplemental first, then once that is approved, that can be used as documentation for the other 2, and you won't have to send all that documentation in again because it's already been approved for the first application. So we should send in the primary application, and then that's the only one he'd have to send in the documentation with. And the people reviewing it would have less to worry about because it's a fresh application with all approved documentation. And so they would just look at it and say, that's okay. And it would cut their review time down.
So I really should go with the new member who is the youngest member.
Yeah.
Because everything would be there, and get him in, and then basically put the numbers as proof on the back of the other applications. Even though I've all filled them all out already, I'd have to go back through and change them again, but I guess it would be
It's
easier.
online, so it's easy to do.
Well, yeah, it's not, It just takes time.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. They're got to be triple checked before you send it. So, yeah. Okay. I got it.
We're going to take 2 more questions, Steve Miller and Ron Turner, and then I think we need to call it a night. I appreciate everybody making inputs. Steve Miller?
Yeah, good question, Gary. If we send in your checklist form all the way to national, how long are you going to keep that? You just keep it until the application's approved, or does it get filed with all the paperwork?
It shouldn't be filed with the paperwork. I think it's just going to be a check on the way through that someone has looked at that and tried to verify that they're following the requirements. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. We're going to have this recorded. So if you have folks who are out there trying to see this or ask some questions, please advise them that we'll have it up momentarily. Let's see. Dennis, did you have anything on the chat that we needed to address?
No, everything that was on there was covered
Okay.
by the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We will have another forum probably in November, but that'll be after we complete the registrar training. So hopefully we get to see a bunch of you at registrar training. Please invite your new chapter registrars, then invite your experienced ones, and then get some feedback on this training. Look forward to seeing you on the 3rd of October, and we'll call it a night. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Great meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary.